For Senator Cruz, Senator Tillis was here first. Thank you, Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Mr. Lawrence, don't lose sight. Do you want to do nothing with me? And let's see, what's the other one? Oh, it's not all about you. Sounds like you've been eavesdropping on conversations among senators as an inspiration for those songs.
Thank you. That's what it's all
also,
based.
just want to point to the fact we're looking at, I think, at the time anyway, the youngest member of the Songwriters Guild after you helped your dad figure out how to do the Miss America pageant or revise it for the purposes of that movie.
Something like that, yeah.
Let me ask you, first off, on the issue of transferability, I'm a Ticketmaster user. I'm a season ticket holder for the Carolina Panthers. It seems to me that I like the idea of an artist being able to do that. Maybe that's what Taylor Swift should have done because it would have probably avoided the situation we had there. But I think a broad brush policy on non-transferability has all kinds of problems to the point that Senator Hawley made, and I could think of other ones. I also think when we talk about scalpers, there are scalpers out there, but there are also people that are speculating on the market being able to demand a higher price. That sounds like a free market principle I don't want to get too far ahead of. So I think we have to be very careful when we talk about things like that. Mr. Berchtold, I'm trying to clearly, Ticketmaster and Live Nation are in the crosshairs. So can you give me two things? I was also prompted by the discussion you had with Senator Blumenthal. One, tell me what you're doing to address what you think, whether or not you believe they're valid. You can see forces working against you. What specifically is Ticketmaster and Live Nation doing to prevent Congress from doing something to you?
Well, thank you, Senator. I think that first we're here today. We'd like to engage in a discussion about what are the policy changes that can be made that can make this a better consumer experience. We believe all-in pricing makes a lot of sense. It simply is clear up front what price you're paying. We believe that there are absolutely deceptive practices that take place today in ticketing. I could give it.
If I may, 'cause I'm going to stick to time.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
I think that it would, and I'm sure you're already thinking about it, but it's getting ahead of something that's probably, but for good faith efforts on you all's part, you may get a congressional prescription that's going to have some bad side effects. Mr. Lawrence, and this back to you also, Mr. Berchtold. Is there a mechanism now where Mr. Lawrence knows exactly what the underlying transaction for a given performance or given production resulted in? In other words, can he get, at the end of the day, I think they set a price at $30 for one venue. Is there any sort of back-end reporting to a performer saying this is how it all stacked up and this is how everybody in the mix actually benefited from it? I mean, do you have that sort of transparency today?
At the end of the day, we're given a settlement sheet, but that settlement sheet gives us, the base price. So it would be that $30. But I would also add that I mentioned earlier about a thing called facility fees, where not only does the settlement sheet not show the extra $12 that might bring it to 42, it'll sometimes even say like 27, even though the base price was 30, because the venue's also just sort of arbitrarily taking an additional $3. So the sheet we get says the tickets were sold for 27 rather than 30 or even 42, which feels a little bizarre to me.
Yeah, I believe that the general notion of the settlement is correct. If Mr. Lawrence and others are not getting the rate card on the service fees up front and having that made available to them, that's a problem on our end that I'll look into coming out of this.
It seems like that needs to be there on the front end.
I agree with that, and I think that there should be total transparency that Mr. Lawrence has. If there's a facility fee, he should know what that is. I think that's fairly standard practice. Again, we represent a minority of venues, but I think that the full transparency should be available to Mr. Lawrence and others in his position.
Mr. Newso, in the remaining 20 seconds, what do you want to say?
I think transferability is extraordinarily important. I think, to your point about there are far more externalities and side effects to completely excluding transferability. And that's something that kind of underscored the first part of my remarks this morning.
I think as we go through I for one, love hyper-competitive market forces. Where we get into the rub is to what extent has it gone from hyper-competitive to anti-competitive? And I think that this hearing and subsequent discussions are going to be helpful to strike the right balance. I'm probably somewhere in the middle, not necessarily pulling for either team, but I do think that there's work that we need to do here. Some of it has to be self-regulation from the entities playing in this space. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Tillis.